it's Semestral Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. We're out here in the beautiful scenery of Grand Junction, Colorado, driving the 2017 Chevy Colorado ZR2. It's the Chevy Colorado ZR2 in Colorado. It's all that stuff. It's kind of confusing. We're going to do off-road high speed. We're doing rock crawling. We're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Stay tuned as we show you the capabilities of this very capable mid-size truck. As you may imagine, doing audio while you're flying around the trophy track course is nearly impossible. So here you go. Here's your audio voiceover of the 2017 Chevrolet Colorado ZR2 that I drove in Gateway, Colorado. Yes, Colorado. It's too confusing. This is the trophy truck course. They do some training out there for trophy truck driving, and we took these Colorados out in a diesel and a gasoline format and just tore it up. First lap was kind of a scouting lap, then you turned off the various Dannies until we had nothing on, and the truck by itself, the diesel and the tires and suspension, the multimatic shocks, and just went after it. One thing you'll note is this, like I said, this truck comes in a diesel and a gasoline format. I was surprised in the high speed that the diesel lagged in the corners. It just needed a little bit of time to spool up, and the gasoline really was the champ as far as going around the course. Very, very comparable to the Tacoma TRD Pro. I don't consider this a Raptor competitor because it's a smaller size, goes places Raptor doesn't go, and a lot better than the Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, which is just, well, it's just old. So you have diesel versus gas. You have a 6-speed in the diesel. You have an 8-speed transmission in the gasoline. And so then we went rock crawling. Then things reversed. So the rock crawling, the diesel was where it was at because you're doing slower speeds. You're just looking for more torque. And the 369 foot-pounds of torque in the diesel is just a lot better low-range torque than it was in the 275 pound-feet of torque in the 3.6-liter V6. You're going to have this argument throughout this video, whether you do diesel or you do gasoline. The diesel fuel economy is going to be better, 22 mile per gallon, 20 combined. Gasoline is 18 and 17. Price increase about $4,000. The extended cab version of the diesel I drove was about $45,000, excuse me, and the crew cab was about $43,000. So there's just some differences. They all have 342 rear ends, and they're all riding in these new 31-inch Goodyear Duratrack off-road tires. Now these tires have a special tread pattern exclusive to the ZR2, which makes them pretty cool and probably pretty expensive to replace. It's just a couple things to note here. It's a really cool looking truck. It's got the skid plates. It's got all the off-road gear. They actually had a new front bumper. They had to change the rear bumper because they literally cracked it in testing in Rubicon Trail. The bumper steps in the standard Colorado, they smashed them. And so they did their best to break this truck. They did everything they could to beat it up, break it, go back, fix it, repair it, and make new parts. And so it's a very well done truck, very good thinking as far as all the design aspects they had to do. They had to go back and find some old Hummer guys and get their experience. Chevy did not have the experience to build this truck at the time when it was revealed at 2014 LA Auto Show, and now they got the experience. They did a bunch of testing, they learned a lot, and they applied it all to the truck, and it's really exciting to drive. There's going to be arguments throughout. You'll hear in the next couple months how does it compare to other vehicles. Again, like I said, the Ford Raptor, not a big comparison. Nissan Frontier is really old. Its true competitors probably the Tacoma TRD Pro, and being I just drove that in Hawaii, I will tell you that it's got three main advantages over the Tacoma TRD Pro. First, it's offered in a diesel, which Toyota just needs to do, and they haven't done. It has more technology. It's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto built into it. It's got really nice piano keys on the inside for adjusting the front and rear locker, and it's got the turn dial for the auto four-wheel drive. It's just really smart technology used throughout the truck. And the last piece, as we're going to see in a minute, is the interior. The interior is just softer. It's just more comfortable. I could sit in this all day long. It just feels more a comfortable driving truck. And so I think those are three big keys that you'll find. I think the price point's probably going to be about the same. And if I had this similar dollars on the hood with the Colorado versus the Tacoma, it'd be a tough choice to make. I mean, I like both trucks, but this Colorado, I drove probably a couple hundred miles in it during the course of 2 days, and it was comfortable at all times. And especially, I thought it was really good when you go on-road, which we're going to do here in a minute. On-road driving, the tires and the multimatic suspension really were tuned well that I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of body roll, even though this truck is a 2-inch increase in lift. I didn't have a whole lot of road noise either. It was a very comfortable drive out and comfortable drive back. I drove, like I said, I drove the gas, I drove the diesel. It was interesting. On road, I didn't feel any diesel differences, but like I said, off road, high speed in the corners, it spooled up, it had lag. It's going to be an interesting choice for consumers deciding what they do more of. If you do more on high speed driving, I would say the gas is where you're going to go. If you're going to do more rock crawling, the diesel is probably where you want to go. So it's a really sharp looking truck. I think it looks really, really good. I think they really did a lot of smart accents. There's some stitching, or there's a badge inside on the headrest. There's different ZR2 badging throughout, and it's distinctive again with the front bumper and the rear bumper, and with all the improvements. It's definitely something that you could lust after as far as a mid-sized truck, as far as an off-road mid-sized truck. It has those advantages. One thing that's important to note is building your own is going to be an argument that's going to come up in forums. Different customers that say they just build their own ZR2. The challenge with that is that they learned so much building the 17 that they actually changed the shock locations where the shock bolts onto underneath the frame and the wheels, and they changed different engineering stuff throughout the truck as far as the suspension. And so you can't take an older model and just put the springs on it. The actual shift, the actual springs and shocks bolt on place on the frame has been adjusted. And so here we go. Here's the on-speed, on-road driving. And again, it was a very comfortable drive. It didn't beat me up. I didn't have any concerns about it riding rough. It was very smooth. You could tell there was a difference between that and the stock Colorado, but it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't like it was very, very noticeable. This is a very easy to drive truck. I imagine having it for a week, you would immediately not notice any difference between that and the stock Colorado. So beautiful truck, beautiful part of the country. And I have a video with the Multimatic engineer talking about those shocks. They actually use them F1 Formula F1 race cars and the Chevy Z28. So I'm going to play that next.
Murray White, I'm the Technical Director of Vehicle Development at Multimatic. We supply these dampers for the trucks.
Okay, so let's walk through this.
Alright, well these are the dampers. That's a front shot and that's a rear shot from the ZR2. And they operate on, the valving is controlled with our spool valve technology, which we also use in Formula 1. So that happens to be a Formula 1 damper as well. So kind of a different scale, but the same kinds of valves inside it. And the actual valving is the oil flow through the damper is controlled by these guys, which is a hydraulic spool valve rather than a shim stack in a typical shock absorber. And we have a coil spring and this shuttle, we call it, and the shaped windows. So when the oil pressure acts on the top, it moves the shuttle and exposes the window to allow oil to escape. And the shape of that window, along with the spring rate, defines the shape of the force velocity curve that the damper produces. So by changing the shape of this window, we can very precisely tailor the shape of the force velocity curve and make it pretty much do what we want. So it's a lot more tunable than a shim valve typically. So it really helps dial in the performance of the truck. So when it's operated, it's also position sensitive. So there's two of these valves back to back inside this valve body here, which when the damper is operating in the normal range, the damping is controlled, one of these for compression and one for rebound inside this chamber. And when the damper reaches a certain amount of compression, the piston crosses over some holes in the inner tube, and then the compression force is controlled by a third spool valve which is actually in the piston. So there's a total of these three of these spool valve arrangements inside the damper. In the normal kind of on-road operating range, it's using the two in the main body, one for compression, one for rebound. When it's in the PSD region, we call it position-sensitive damping region. When you get a really big hit, to absorb more energy, it picks up a lot of damping as it reaches the end of stroke, and that's controlled by the piston spool valve arrangement. So
it all comes down to the little.
Yeah, there's these little guys.
That's a little magic secret. Huh?
That is the magic. Yes, these guys are really. There's a couple of other kind of secondary advantages of the damper architecture. It's a twin tube architecture, although it operates hydraulically like a monotube. and the oil is constantly recycled from between the inner tube and the outer tube. So in rebound, the oil comes. Actually, we have a plastic one. You can actually see what I'm talking about. So it's got the inner steel tube, very thin wall steel tube, and an outer aluminum body, and the space between the two tubes. In rebound, the oil above the piston is pulled up the inner tube, comes out through these ports, down through the annular space between the tubes, and into the rebound valve, and then recycles into the bottom. So the oil is constantly recycling past the outer surface of the damper, so they're really good for cooling. They stay a lot cooler than a typical damper because the oil is the working fluid is constantly being recycled past the aluminum outer can of the damper, which is really good for air cooling.
So, like, shock fatigue is a lot better with the...
It is, yes. They stay after, I don't, if it's too late, but it would have been interesting after you run out on the off-road course, if you get out and put your hand on the damper, they're warm, but by no means hot, typically. I mean, if you did a crazy 90-mile-an-hour blast across the desert, they'd get hot.
Right.
The kind of thing most people do with them, they get, maybe 110 degrees, something like that, really not very hot at all. So it's very effective at keeping them cool, and that the spool valves themselves inherently have some advantage in temperature stability, but the big advantage is the way the architecture circulates the oil past the outer can of the damper. It keeps it cool.
Very cool stuff.
It is cool stuff. The truck performance kind of speaks for itself. It's very effective.
Very cool shocks. I've never seen anything like that in the marketplace, so check them out. It's not your typical Fox or Bilstein, so it's something different. Don't be in a rush to go replace them right away. Experience the truck. I just wanted to close with a few notes. The truck starts at $40,995. It's being shipped right now to dealers. Go check it out. Like I said, the diesel was about $4,000 difference. It was a great riding truck. You're going to see lots of comparisons coming up with that and Tacoma TRD Pro because they are very comparable, and they're very much in a segment that I would say is their own. It's not a Raptor competitor. The Nissan Frontier Pro X 4X needs to be upgraded, and so until it does, it's just the Colorado ZR2 and just the Tacoma TRD Pro.